and welcome back to our podcast. I'm the Disturbed Southern Belle.
And I'm the Gentleman.
So I'm finishing up my series that I've been doing through the month of October about some disturbing true stories. Now, some, of course, have been, like survival type stories, like the one from the Miracle in the Andes and things like that. But on this last episode, I decided to do something a bit different and share some stories that basically happened to me personally. So these things have sort of helped kind of shape my curiosity and fascination with the paranormal and supernatural. So I'm going to start with one of my first weird happenings, you might say, or when we moved into what I will call the haunted house. So I'm an only child, if you didn't know, and when I was around 4 or 5, my parents moved us to a new house. So at that time, we moved around a few times here and there, like every year or so we would move. They were, I guess, trying to save up money to buy a house of their own. I mean, I really don't know. Now, as to why we were moving around, I don't know if they were looking for somewhere that was cheaper, closer to a workplace. I don't know. I wouldn't in the loop on that. I just know that we moved around ever so often. So anyway, we moved into this house, which was actually a fairly large house, and it was pretty old. Now, later on, I learned that it was supposed to have been around like 80 or 100 years old when we moved into it. Now, it had some additions added onto the very back of it, like it had a bathroom built onto it and stuff that was on the back of the house and like a laundry room. But other than that, the rest of the house was like the original house. So I've never heard of anything happening at this house. I don't even know if anyone's ever died in this house. I don't know who lived in this house. I have no idea about the history of this house. So, I never really tried to find out either, but anyway. So, I'm going to sort of give you like a brief layout of the house so you can kind of understand what I'm talking about when I talk about different rooms and how they are, So, if you were standing in the front yard of the house and you were facing it, you'd see like this front porch, front door, and then the porch would wrap around the left side of the house and go like down the side of the house. Then on the right side of the house, there was no porch, and there was like 2 doors that would lead outside. One was at the back of the house where the kitchen was, and one was towards the front where the living room was on the side. And then there was a door that was in the front of the house, and then there was a back door somewhere back in there, but I never really went out that back door much. So if you entered the house's front door, like you come up on the porch and you went in the front of the house, which we didn't usually come in that way. We usually came in one of the side doors, but it doesn't matter. If you came in this front door, you're like standing in this long hallway, and there was rooms on either side. And there was just a hallway that led all the way back, and then there was an opening at the back that led into the kitchen in the back of the house. So on the right-hand side, the first door on the right side was the living room, and on the left side, there was a bedroom. So if you walk down a little further, there was another bedroom on the right, and then there was another bedroom on the left, and then that was the rooms, and then you go into the kitchen. So now, if you went into the living room, there was also a door, like I said, that was straight out that would go outside, and then that went out the side of the house, and then there was also a door that was at the back of the room that led into the bedroom that was behind it. So that bedroom had 2 doors to it. Now, what difference that makes? It doesn't. I'm just telling you where the doors are. So anyway, like I said, there was 3 bedrooms and then whatever. So if you went back in the kitchen, it was kind of like this large sort of like rectangular shaped room that sat on the back of the house. On the left side was actually where the kitchen area was at, where like the stove, refrigerator, sinks, and all that, stuff was at. And on the left side was like an open area, and that's where they we had like this little dining room table and stuff, and like I think like a cabinet or something my mama had, and she put it over there on the left side. Now on the left side also there was like 2 doors. Now one of the doors opened up and it went into the bathroom, and the other one went into this like little laundry room. Now there was like 2 separate rooms on the back. Now these had been built on, these are the rooms I was talking about being built on because this, like I said, was an old house. So back in those days, I'm sure they probably had an outhouse or something like that way back, when it was originally built. So the bathroom and the laundry room had been added on. But like I said, the rest of the house was supposed to be the original part. Now, ironically enough, the parts of the house that was built on new, I don't remember anything ever happening in any of those rooms or anything odd, weird, or nothing happening. So anyway, so now you've got a basic layout of the house. You got, where everything's sort of at. So we'll start with I guess, what started happening first. So what we started noticing first, now we moved in, I remember it was actually pretty warm. Now I don't remember what month it was specifically, but it would have been around like springish, summerish time. So it wasn't getting cold yet. Now we live in the South, so people who know that, it's fairly warm around that time of year.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it was probably, I'm going to say around maybe April, May, June-ish, maybe around actual summertime. Now, what would happen is initially is like there would be cold spots in the house, like parts of the room where it would just literally be freezing. I mean, just like these one little spots in the room, it would be really cold. Okay. So now parents really didn't think much about it. I didn't either because they kind of played it off. But it was weird to me because, we'd lived other places I think we'd lived like another house before that, before we moved here. Like this was like the second house that I'd lived in. But, nothing like that ever happened at the other house. So I thought it was a little weird, but they said, it's an old house, blah, blah, blah. And maybe that's what it was. I don't know. But it was odd to me. Now, things didn't quite stay just like that, though. As we lived there longer, now I don't know how long, I would say maybe a month or two later, things started kind of kicking off a little bit. Now, on the side of the house where the two doors were, like where the living room and kitchen were, there was this driveway that, and it was a pretty good ways away from the road. So it was like this long gravel driveway that ran right alongside the house. So when you came up it, you could hear it. I mean, it was loud. Crunch, crunch, crunch. It was, you could hear cars coming up it. In other words, no one was sneaking up on that thing. It was loud. So we started hearing what sounded like somebody driving up it all the time. Just at random times. You'd hear like what sounded like a car coming up that driveway. You'd hear like it going across the gravel or whatever. And my mother and father, kind of get up. They'd look out the windows and like look out the door and nothing's out there. Nothing, but you'd hear it. I mean, you could hear something coming up the driveway. It was creepy. So, everybody heard this. Everybody did make comment of it and they just played it off again. No, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So, okay. Now, the weird thing about it is it would happen most of the time. Now, I don't remember. It may have happened other times, but most of the time I remember it happening, it was around when it started getting dark or right after dark. So it's like somebody coming home from work kind of time, or something like back in those days, which you might, think of. Now, I'm not saying that's what was happening. I'm just saying it happened around that time, 9 in the morning. I don't remember ever hearing it. But then again, I was a little kid, so, Now, like I said, my mother and father would get up, look around, nothing. So then it started escalating till one night, it was just me and my mama home. Now, I think my dad was like working late that night or something. I don't know. He might have been out doing something else. I don't know. But anyway, he was not home. And it was just after dark. And we heard what, again, sounded like somebody coming up the driveway. So we, she didn't even get up and look because at that time, it'd just been something that you would just hear every so often. So we just, it's going to happen, right? So anyway, this time though, we heard what sounded like a door shut on a car, and that we'd never heard before. And then we heard what sounded like the kitchen door shutting, which is at the back of the house. And then we heard it sounded like somebody walking through the kitchen, like heavy boots, boom, boom, like what my dad would wear back in those days, like these heavy work boots. And then we heard a chair scrape. And we're sitting there looking at each other like, what's going on? And she looked at me. So she gets up and she looks again, and there's nothing outside. So she finally kind of, I guess, sort of gets her composure enough, and she goes over and she gets the shotgun that my dad had sitting over in the corner of the living room. He had it propped up in this corner in the living room near the door. And she went and got that, and we kind of went down the hallway and went into the kitchen, and nothing, of course. But the chair, one of the dining room chairs, had been pulled out from the table, kind of out towards the middle of the floor a little bit. And I know for a fact it was. Now, she kind of played it off and said, maybe she had pulled it out and left it there. But you could tell she didn't really believe that. We were just kind of played it off. And she told my dad about it, and he just sort of, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So, I don't know. Now, we heard it, and, it sounded like somebody back there. Now, the next weird thing that happened is one day I was out playing on the side porch part of the house that wrapped around, like I said, on like the left side. And I was sitting out there, and I had my back like to Like I was facing out towards the front of the house, which would have been towards like the road that ran in front of the house. And my back was like to the backyard area. And all of a sudden I heard this voice, just like this deep voice, get up. And I was like, and I just jumped up, I was like a little kid. So I jumped up and I ran a little bit. Then I turned around and looked back, and there was nobody there, but there was like a freaking rattlesnake at the end of the porch. Hadn't made a noise. So I freak out. I run in the house. I tell my dad, and he goes out and he gets it and I guess kills it or whatever. I don't know. I didn't go out and, he wouldn't let me be out there, whatever. But
fair enough.
Anyway, so there was nobody nearby, and I know for a fact I heard that voice. I told him. He said I probably just imagined it or whatever, but anyway, I know for a fact I heard somebody told me, get up. Now, the last sort of odd thing that happened here, now this one I remember very vividly, is I'd gotten in trouble for something one day, and I don't know what it was. I don't remember what I'd done or what had happened, but anyway, I just remember Dad had yelled at me about something, and it kind of made me upset, right? So I go in my bedroom, and I'm sitting on my bed, and I'm upset, and I'm kind of crying, and I'm sitting there, crying or whatever, and then all of a sudden, I feel this hand, coming down on the back of my head, stroking down my back, and it does it, several times. It's like it's pet me. But it made me feel better. It was weird. It was so comforting. It was almost like what you might imagine, like a grandmother or something, kind of thing, And yeah, it didn't scare me, which was weird. Now, we moved out of that house pretty soon after that, and none of that kind of weird stuff followed us anywhere else. So these next incidences I'll describe that have actually happened to me. They've happened sort of a handful of times, and then I've heard other people say they've happened to them something similar as well. Is I'll see these dark figures, like shadow people-ish, but not when I'm asleep kind of thing.
Yeah.
So let's say, for instance, one time I was the living room at the house that I lived in for the majority of my life. And I'd get up and go to the bathroom. Now, the way the hallway's laid out, over half the hallways, with the living room light was lit up. And there was just a small little section there at the back, right in front of the bathroom door that, was kind of dark. So you didn't really have to turn on a light or anything just to go to the bathroom. You could just kind of see well enough, and you're right there. You can just open the door and turn the light on. Well, anyway, I went around the corner there and sort of had my head down a little bit, and I was kind of walking down the hall, or walking around that corner, rather, just to sort of turn the corner, and then pretty much you walk maybe 2 or 3 feet, and there was the freaking bathroom door. But anyway, I went around the corner, and it's like there was something standing there, and I look up, and I see it. There's this black form just standing in front of me. It's like a shape, and it is black, and I mean blacker than anything I've ever seen, pitch black, weird black,
like a void type of
black, right? And then it just disappeared, and I was like, okay. And then I just walked through it, and it was really hot right there, ironically enough, when I went through it. So then I flipped the light on, and that was it. Now, that's happened a few different times. Sometimes, if I get up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom or something, I'll see something while the lights are off, and you'll see something that's darker than the dark. It's just really weird to describe unless you haven't seen it. Now, am I imagining it? I don't know. But anyway, I'm saying that I have seen it. So, the last incident I'm going to describe happened probably about a few months after my dad passed away. I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 months after he passed away. My husband and I were sitting in the living room in our house that we lived in at the time. And at that time, we had this entertainment center that was on in the living room, and the TV was in it. And on top of the TV, we had some, on entertainment center, rather, there was some little knickknacks. And there was also this little wooden shelf that had 2 shelves on it that was made for holding DVDs or PlayStation games or something like that. Now, we had DVDs in it, and these things were in there. I mean, it was full, in other words, to capacity.
Yeah.
You had to wiggle one to get it out. It was not just popping out of there. So we're sitting there one night, we're watching TV, and he's sort of laid down on the couch, and there's a chair over to the side, and I was sitting in it, and something came on TV. I don't even remember what it was. I don't remember if it was a show or movie. I don't remember. But anyway, something sort of just started making me think about my dad. And I started getting a little sad, like you do right after someone passes. And then all of a sudden, one of these DVDs literally just comes flying out of this shelf, goes flying over my husband's head, 10 or 15 feet, goes out in the middle of the floor. I mean, just barely misses his head. And we're sitting there like, what in the world? Still to this day, have no clue how this happened. So I go and I pick it up, and it wasn't anything special. It was just some odd DVD. It wasn't like something like my dad would like. It wasn't anything like that. And I put it back in there. And then I even took the thing and I was shaking it and trying to see if I could make it do it again. And they would not come out. So I don't know. That was weird. And we still don't know why that did that. But I mean, it like somebody jerked it out and just kind of flung it over their shoulder or something. It's what it looked like. But anyway, how about you? Do you have any strange stories? If so, we would love to hear them. Drop us a comment. I'm all into the ghost stories or just odd events. Like I said, it doesn't really matter if you believe in the paranormal or supernatural. It's just they're crazy. They're fun to talk about. And it's the spooky month, so I thought I would share some.
Either way, they are just interesting stories anyways.
At the
even if they're
very
not
least,
real.
right. Exactly. Now, I'm not saying I'm some big advocate of ghosts or anything like that. I don't know if there's anything out there or not. All I know is I have experienced some things that I personally just can't explain. That's it. But anyway, we hope you enjoyed that series of disturbing true stories. We're going to be continuing on still with our disturbing stories of old Hollywood. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. And don't forget to stay disturbed.